Hello everyone, welcome back to OCD Recovery's YouTube channel. Before I go any further, if you could please subscribe down below. Great content going up all the time, especially recently. Just a lot of videos going up at once, good volume of videos, very in-depth videos that might not be covered, especially there's a lot of misconceptions about the recovery journey itself and how unconditional self-life and other acceptance works. There's a lot of people talking about how we had to use the teachings from Albert Ellis in order to basically unlatch our core fears, which is usually fear of being stuck forever, whether they knew this about me, I couldn't accept myself, and so forth. So today I did in the Facebook group. If you're not a member of the Facebook group, I definitely suggest you join. It's a free Facebook group, free forum with 11 moderators who are pretty well versed in reassurance. Not always the best thing to hear when you're asking a reassurance question, but we're doing it in the best interest of yourself because we don't want you to stay stuck either. So I have 5 things I'm going to talk about, and today's video is called "What Stops Us or Prevents Us from Reaching Recovery." And now there's many obstacles on the OCD recovery journey. I got my coffee. It's Erica's mug, and in here it says "Let's go somewhere," to the top of a mountain and go hiking. That's what I like. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is not reading the books on the reading list or not educating yourself on OCD, and then skim reading in general, especially the books on our reading list. So what a lot of people will do, and understandably so when they're chronically suffering, is they will skim read. They will read very fast for a few reasons, either because they're suffering really badly and they don't want to take the time to read it nice and slow, or because they want to get the information as fast as they can. We've all done this. I've done this. And then some of the stuff is pretty in-depth. So humans love surface level stuff. We love a post on Instagram from someone with 9 million followers that says, "Think positive thoughts today." This is not just OCD related. And everyone likes it because, just positivity all the time. Now, positivity and a correct mindset is very important for dealing with all types of hardships and journeys in your life, but it's not as surface level as that. And if it was, for us, just think positively or thoughts are thoughts, the primary aspect what a lot of people still use. I'm going to talk about that in my second point. It doesn't unlatch chronic OCD. It doesn't work for most people. It's a tool that can be used further along in recovery, but if you're chronically stuck and you're deathly afraid of something, more than likely you're going to have to look into your fear in a way that it's going to make you really uncomfortable. So the reading list is key. Now, something I want to talk about the reading list, and there's a lot of people who have talked about the books in the reading list. I'll be doing new videos covering all 5 books in the reading list soon, but basically, the books will teach you tools, but they're not going to make you recover. So in order to reach recovery, you have to start applying these tools over a period of time. People think they're going to read the book and then just be recovered. That's not how it works. As Albert Ellis says, just knowing how to drive a car doesn't make you a good driver. You have to practice these tools and see these perspective shifts. That takes time and practice. So that's really important. Okay, number 2 that stops us from reaching recovery is thoughts are thoughts, and this should be easy. This is super key. So the book, probably the most important book on the reading list is book number 1, How to Stubbornly Refuse to Make Yourself Miserable. This book teaches you about the tools and how to place unconditional self-life and other acceptance in the practice, why our irrational beliefs really keep us stuck, and stuff like that. So we have thoughts, and humans are must, shoulds, and oughts. Like, this must be easy. This shouldn't be hard. For someone like me, when I have a relapse, because I'm still working on my recovery journey with different types of fears, I'll say to myself, I should know this. I should understand this. Instead of just, I'm having a relapse, I'm going to go about my day. One of the worst things you can do when you're having a setback or a relapse is analyze, which you'll automatically do if it's the first couple of relapses. We all do that. But the further you get along in recovery and the more relapses you have and the more you start to understand OCD, you know not to not engage with the thoughts, because it is a part. Thoughts are thoughts is definitely a key part of recovering. It's just not the primary thing where most people say it out to be. Because what happens is if you revert back to the thoughts are thoughts approach, which we've seen anecdotally does not work for the majority of chronic OCD sufferers. Again, doesn't mean it isn't a part of the recovery journey. It tends to leave people pretty stuck. And then, oh, unconditional self-life and other acceptance is too hard, low frustration tolerance. I've talked about that all the time. It's too hard. It shouldn't be this hard. I'm just going to go back to doing thoughts or just thoughts and go about my day. And you might see relief with that. Some people will see 50%, 80%, who knows, arbitrary numbers, but you might not see the relief that you want to see. And that's huge. That's really important to talk about. So, number 3, and this is constantly seeking reassurance or talking about how bad OCD is. The biggest problem with forums outside of ours, and there are other ones that are moderated, I don't think they're moderated at the way OCD Recoveries is it's very easy to sit down and talk about how tough OCD is. And I am not downplaying how tough OCD is. Having chronic OCD, especially with no tools, is not easy. It's definitely tough. This is why we have this channel. This is why you have my videos and other moderators and other people who aren't moderators, but they're further along in their recovery journey, like Jade, like Kaylee done a video a year ago, which is a really good one, how she turned her whole entire life around. But this is the thing, okay? If you sit down all day, before you make a post and you're going to talk about how tough OCD is, think about if that's going to benefit you at all. It more than likely is not going to benefit you. I'm telling you because I know, because it never benefits anyone. And it's a very easy trap to fall into. They're like, I'm just going to complain. I'm just going to say these things. And I'm just going to go about my day and be, and just be negative about OCD. It's a really easy trap to fall into. Now, on the reassurance side, there is an important thing I want to talk about. Because OCD is still in the dark age in a lot of ways. And sufferers, in my opinion, tend to know more about OCD than most people because we have it. We see how it operates. I always use the example as the waterfall in an office, like in a spa. A lot of people understand the top level of the water, but to understand the water that's getting underneath it and going between the cracks and the granite, you kind of have to have OCD in a lot of ways. A lot of people don't like to hear that. Now, here's an important thing to talk about. We don't have this problem in Alcoholics Anonymous in America. We know that the best help comes from ex-addicts. We know that. It's not disputable. But it's a little bit different still in OCD. It's not saying that people that don't have OCD can't help, because they certainly can. But I don't think they can see it in the way that we do. So we might be able to, give a little bit better of an insight into the ways that it moves around the cracks, especially like with the fears I had, sensation-based somatic OCD stuff. Almost everything you hear is wrong. Even from some of the top resources, it's not correct. None of it's correct. I've listened to a lot of the podcasts. So if you have someone and you think that they're offering you reassurance or they're telling you that you don't have OCD, you can go for a second opinion. There's nothing wrong with that. This is important because I know people I'm friends with who were told that, their exposures cannot become compulsive. That's not true. They were telling them that they didn't have OCD because they didn't clean things or check things. That's not true either. We can't be mad at these people. They don't understand. I don't know what it's like to not have legs from getting my legs blown off in an IED in Iraq. I don't know what it's like to lose my vision. If I lost my vision, you know who I want to talk to? Someone who lost their vision. That's just facts of life. And people get really triggered by that because, we have a conditional acceptance. Like, let's say myself, I'm giving reassurance to you. I'm a coach, I'm a therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, or just a coach. And I'm giving you reassurance and you say to me, I think you're giving me reassurance. If that person doesn't understand the tools of unconditional self-acceptance, it's very hard for them with the fear of judgment and the fear of being wrong to say, oh my gosh, I'm wrong. I admit a lot to my patients when I'm wrong, especially because the research with pain management in my field is changing all the time because pain is completely multifactorial. It's not just structural. So I've had to go up to patients and be like, hey, look, new literature is coming out, good literature and anecdotes. And some of the stuff I told you is just outdated. I can do that because of the tools I have. And I've had people say to me, wow, that is not easy to admit. I'm like, yeah, I know it's not. So the fourth thing I want to talk about is going from book to book and instant fix. So these are the words I hear all the time. Unconditional acceptance doesn't work for me. That's impossible. It's flat out impossible. It's a philosophy. It's not a tool. It's a philosophy of seeing things in a rational sense. Everyone has the ability to adopt unconditional self-life and other acceptance. It just might take you longer than you want it to. That is absolutely key. It might take you longer than you want it to, and it usually takes longer than you want it to. But that doesn't mean you have to give up on it. Now, another part about that, you can have a desire to recover, but when you make it a must, an absolute must that you need to recover, recovery will elude you. It will just like sneak past you because you're putting too much demand on it. You know, as Paul David said in the quote video I did, recovery comes to you. You don't go to recovery. It doesn't mean you don't work on recovery, but recovery comes to you in shifts, in perspective shifts. But yeah, so like what people do is the quick fixes. And again, I always have to say this so people get a good understanding. It's not that breathing and yoga and grounding techniques and mindfulness meditation and all this stuff can't have benefit, because it definitely can. But it's the way we use them. You're reading books fast, going back to point number one, reading and skimming books. You're reading them because you want them to be a tool of an escape. Instead of, I'm going to be really uncomfortable when I read this book. It's going to be a learning lesson. I'm going to go through there. And then that's basically how you go about it. And that's super important to go about it in that way. So if you're looking for a quick fix, which we've all done in our recovery journey, more than likely, sorry, I just got distracted by a text. Usually I turn my data off, and I was like, ugh. Especially when I've had a couple coffees. You know, I'm like a squirrel sometimes. So, but those instant fixes they're holding us back. Held me back, still hold me back a little bit. Gotten a little better, but they're still holding me back a little bit. So, number 5, and the most important one, Oliver has done a great video on this, talks about this. I love the way he puts it, but it's not making recovery a priority. And the detriments, it's a two-part, even though these things aren't the same, not making OCD recovery a priority, does not mean every waking second of your recovery, but it's building your frustration tolerance and then developing grit and going towards it. It's being on the phone all day. When you're on your deathbed at night, this is what Rob would say to me. I play video games 100 hours a week. I have severe addiction to video games. I played at a very high level. Rob said to me, are you going to be sitting in your bed saying, I'm so glad I played video games 90 hours a week and didn't build any strong relationships in life. I didn't have any hardships. I just sat in a dark room and played video games with 14-year-old kids. He's like, maybe you will. But he goes, I don't think you're going to. That hit me hard as fuck. Excuse my language. It really did. And that is super important to talk about. So recovery is not going to, without putting the work in, recovery will come to you, as I said before, allowing it to come to you in perspective shifts. But you still have to put the work in to change your beliefs and your perspectives, and it's not going to happen overnight. I know it's hard with the pandemic with people and how, if you still live in an area where it's a little bit more restricted. I get it, being on your phone, it's easy to sit in bed and be on your phone. Listen to me, please, for the love of all things. That's not going to bring you to where you want to go. I have to be honest with you. In order to get to where you want to go, you're going to have to put yourself in uncomfortable positions. A good one for me is, like for myself, is I still don't like being distracted, like when I'm focused on a chore. It would bring a lot of anxiety. So when Erica's like, hey, could you do this for me? I'll just get up and go do it. I got to do things, actively do things, in order to set myself up for my perspective shifts and recovery to come to me. That's really important. So those are the main things that hold us back with preventing us to recover. The number one thing, ladies and gentlemen, is I know a lot of people get like a little weird on us and they'll say stuff like, oh, like they're really specific about these books. I mean, these books were chosen for a reason, and there's a reason why we all read them. There's lots of people out there who've read these books. It's not that other books in the community can't be beneficial. I definitely do think there's other books that are not on the reading list that teach you about OCD, like the mechanics of OCD and how it works in a much better fashion. But I mean, that's important, but so is understanding the philosophies and how to change, getting underneath the core fear. So, I'll just end it with that. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, and then new videos. And again, if you have any questions about videos or topics you want me to do, the ones I have coming up is how to build a low frustration tolerance, 10 points that help me with getting over somatic OCD or hyper-awareness. I'm going to do a really good video about perfectionistic. Why our society is so bent on perfection and not making mistakes. Probably one of the worst things you could do for human psychology, to be honest. Because we're humans and we all make mistakes. So again, taught in the reading list that humans are fallible. So thank you so much for watching and have a great day.